I want you to just, for a second, picture a scenario. And it's one we have all been in probably more times than we, care to count.
Mm-hmm.
You're standing in a room, maybe it's a conference, and you can smell that stale coffee in the air, or maybe it's your first day at a new office.
That new carpet smell.
Exactly. The room is buzzing, people are chatting, and you're feeling okay.
Yeah.
But then someone turns to you, they make eye contact, they smile, they extend a hand, and then they drop the grenade.
So tell me about yourself.
The ultimate conversation grenade. And looking at the research we've got for today's deep dive, for a huge percentage of English learners, this moment isn't just, annoying.
Yeah.
It is physically inducing a fight or flight response. It's the freeze.
It is. It's a visceral reaction. The psychologists, they call it an acute stress response. Your heart rate spikes up, your palms get a little sweaty, and your brain, which, by the way, holds thousands and thousands of English words, it suddenly decides to just format the hard drive.
Right. It's all gone. You know your name, you know your job, you know where you live,
Yeah.
but in that split second, the files are they're gone. You stammer out "my name is," and then you just stare at them.
And the real tragedy is what happens after the interaction. You walk away, the adrenaline wears off, and you start replaying the tape in your head.
Oh, yeah.
You're thinking, why did I sound like a robot? Why did I say it like that? I sound so much better when I'm talking to myself in the shower.
It feels stiff. It feels so forced. And here's the thing that really stood out to me in the source material we're breaking down today. This anxiety.
Mm.
It has almost nothing to do with your actual level of English fluency.
That's the fascinating part, isn't it? You could be a C1 level, you could be reading complex technical manuals in English for your job, but when you have to introduce yourself, you just crumble. It's a very specific kind of performance anxiety.
Why is that? I mean, why is this one specific speech act, just saying who we are, so terrifying compared to, say, ordering a coffee or discussing a project?
It's all about the stakes. It's the perceived stakes. This isn't just about transferring information from you to them. It's about the psychology of the first impression. When someone asks, tell me about yourself, we don't really hear a question. We feel a spotlight. We feel this immense pressure to perform, to be impressive, to be smart, to be funny, and to do it all in a second language right now.
We feel like we have to prove we belong in that room immediately. And we internalize this pressure to sound fluent. And our definition of fluent usually means, well, it means complicated.
Exactly. And that leads us directly to the core trap that we are going to dismantle today. Most learners think that to make a good first impression, they need complexity. They think, I need big words, I need perfect grammar, I need to sound like a professor.
But if you actually look at the reality of how native speakers talk, which is what we're going to do extensively today, that instinct is the very thing that is killing your confidence.
It is the exact opposite of what you should do. The big insight for today, the main takeaway from our deep dive is so counterintuitive. A great introduction is simple. It is remarkably, almost aggressively simple.
So our mission today is to strip away all of that mental clutter. We are going to look at a framework, really a four-part system that can guarantee a natural, confident introduction every single time, whether you're facing a CEO, a new colleague, or just, meeting someone at a hostel bar.
And we are going to establish a rule right now for everyone listening, the low-stress rule. You do not need advanced vocabulary to do this well. In fact, if you find yourself using advanced vocabulary, you're probably creating distance rather than connection.
Okay, let's dig into this psychology a bit more before we get to the mechanics. Because I really think if we don't understand why we freeze, the tips and the tricks, they won't stick.
I agree.
There's this one anecdote in the notes about a learner, an engineer, brilliant guy, could explain incredibly complex machinery in English, no problem. But introduce him to a stranger.
Yeah.
Total panic.
It's a classic case of what psychologists call cognitive load. When you are introducing yourself, your brain is trying to do way too many things at once.
Right.
You're monitoring your accent, you're double-checking your grammar, you're trying to read the other person's face to see if they understand you, and you're trying to remember your own job title. The CPU just overheats.
And when the CPU overheats, the result is usually that we try to overcompensate. We try to build these massive, complicated sentences to save the interaction, don't we?
Yes.
We think if we use a fancy sentence structure, it somehow masks the nervousness.
Right. I've heard people say things like, I have been historically employed in the sector of accountancy for the duration of 7 years.
Which is, I mean, is that grammatically correct?
It is grammatically correct English,
Yeah.
100%. But socially, it's a disaster. It just creates distance. It sounds like a legal document, not a human being.
Yeah, it sounds like you're reading from a contract.
Exactly. The native standard, if we want to call it that, is all about minimizing friction. Native speakers prioritize clarity. They just want to get the info filed away in their brain and then start the real conversation.
So when we try to be perfect, we're actually making it harder for the other person to understand us. We're making them work too hard.
Precisely. And here is the mantra for today, something for you to hold on to. Confidence comes from clarity. If you are clear, you will sound confident. If you are trying to be perfect, you will sound anxious.
Okay, so if the goal isn't to give them my entire biography or, impress them with my vocabulary, then what is the goal?
The goal is to provide a hook. That's it. You are just giving them a handle, a small piece of information they can grab onto to start a real conversation. It's not a speech, it's an opener.
A hook. I like that. So to help us build this hook, our sources break the introduction down into 4 very distinct blocks. It's almost like a little Lego set. You have the greeting, the name, the role, and the optional detail.
It sounds basic, almost too basic, right? But the magic is in the nuance of each of those blocks. If you can master these 4 little pieces, you never have to freeze again. You just assemble the Lego.
Okay, let's start with block 1, the greeting. This feels like it should be the easiest part, but I feel like people really overthink this. They get stuck in textbook mode.
Oh, absolutely. Greetings, sir. Good afternoon, madam.
Exactly. It makes me feel like I'm about to be served a summons or something. It's so formal.
It sets a really weird tone right away. It creates a hierarchy that just doesn't need to be there. Context is king here, you know?
Right.
If you are in a standard professional setting, an interview, a meeting, you have 2 gold standards. Hi or hello. You simply cannot mess those up. They are safe, they are friendly, they work.
What about hey? I mean, I use hey all the time. Is that okay?
Hey is great, but it does carry a tiny bit of risk. It's casual. If you are meeting your new boss for the very first time, hey might be a tiny bit too relaxed, depending on the corporate culture.
Good point.
But on the other hand, if you're at a mixer or meeting a friend's friend, hello might sound a little too stiff. You have to read the room. But if you're ever in doubt, hi is the safest word in the English language.
And then there's the little politeness phrase you can tack on at the end. Nice to meet you.
That is the universal adapter. It just works everywhere. Hi, nice to meet you. It's warm, it's brief, and it signals that you are a friendly person. You don't need, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance.
Oh, please
Just nice to meet you. It's perfect.
Okay, moving on to block 2. The name. This is where I think English textbooks have done us a real disservice. We all learned, my name is, on page 1.
We did. And look, my name is not wrong. I want to be really clear about that. It is 100% accurate English. But to a native ear, it has a very specific flavor. It sounds presentational.
It sounds like you're standing at the front of the class giving a report.
Right. My name is Slim Shady.
Oh.
It's a declaration. It's very formal. Native speakers almost universally shorten this in conversation. They contract it.
So they switch from my name is to I'm.
I'm Alex. Or they'll contract the possessive. My name's Alex, but really I'm is the winner for speed and for naturalness. It just removes the barrier. It feels immediate. It feels closer.
There was a note in here about meetings, specifically online meetings. Is that different?
Yes, that's a great point. If you are on a Zoom call or maybe sitting around a big boardroom table, you might hear someone say, this is name. Like, hi, everyone, this is Sarah from marketing. But for a one-on-one, face-to-face introduction, I'm Sarah, is what you want.
So if we combine block 1 and block 2, our foundation is something like, hi, I'm Alex. Nice to meet you.
Clean, simple, there's zero friction there. You aren't forcing the listener to process any unnecessary syllables. You're just getting straight to the point.
Okay, now we get to the tricky part. Block 3, the role. This is the what do you do section.
And this is where the anxiety usually spikes again because our identities, our jobs, they're complex. We feel this need to explain everything all at once. But remember the rule, simple. You want subject plus verb plus noun.
The examples in our notes are so punchy. I work in cybersecurity. I'm a student. I work as a network engineer. I'm a content creator.
Notice what they are not doing. They aren't giving their whole resume. They aren't saying, I am currently employed as a senior vice level 3 engineer managing a team of 12. No, just, I work in cybersecurity. Boom, done.
We are definitely going to do a massive deep dive into the grammar of work in versus work as in just a minute, because I know that is a minefield for so many people.
It really is.
But first, let's look at block 4, the extra detail. The source material calls this optional. But I feel like this is the secret sauce.
It is absolutely the secret sauce. Blocks 1, 2, and 3, they make you a function. Hi, I'm Alex. I work in IT. Okay, great. You're a worker drone. Block 4 is what makes you a human.
This is the conversation bait. This is the hook we were talking about.
Exactly. You want to drop one little interesting fact that invites a question. Geography is a great one. I'm from Australia.
Because immediately my brain wants to ask, oh, have you been to Sydney? Do you surf? It gives me something to work with.
Exactly. You've just taken the pressure off yourself and you've put the ball in their court. You've given them permission to talk to you. Other great details are your current status. I'm currently learning English, or your interests. I recently started a YouTube channel.
So if we sketch this whole thing together, this Frankenstein monster, though hopefully it's a very elegant monster, it sounds something like this. Hi, I'm Alex. I work in cybersecurity and I'm currently learning English.
And that took, what, maybe 4 seconds?
4 seconds. And in those 4 seconds, you've told them your name, your job, and a personal fact about you. It's so efficient.
It's efficient, but it's also really confident. It says, I know who I am, and I don't need 50 words to explain it to you. It's powerful.
Okay, I promised we would get into the weeds. So let's look at the mechanics, because even though we want to be simple, we still need to be accurate. And the biggest trap I see in the sources, and frankly in real life, is work in versus work as.
This is such a classic stumbling block, and I get it. To a learner, they seem interchangeable. I mean, it's just a preposition, right? What's the big deal? But they signal very different things to a native ear.
Okay, so break it down for us. How do we distinguish them?
Think of it like a camera lens. Work in is the wide-angle lens. It talks about the big picture, the industry, the field, the department. It's broad. I work in finance. I work in marketing. I work in sales.
So you wouldn't say, I work in a teacher.
No, exactly. Because teacher isn't an industry. It's a specific job. And that brings us to work as. Work as is the portrait lens. It zooms right in on your specific title or your identity. I work as a teacher. I work as a project manager.
Okay, that's a great mental model. In is the room you're standing in, as is the hat you're wearing.
That's a perfect analogy. And just a quick side note on the grammar here. Work as almost always needs the article a or an. You can't say I work as a developer. It has to be I work as a developer.
Right, so I work in IT. That's the industry. Versus I work as an IT consultant. That's the specific role.
Exactly. And using them correctly is one of those subtle signals of fluency. If you say, I work in a doctor, it sounds jarring. It sounds like you are literally inside a doctor, which is not what we want to convey.
Definitely not. Now, there was one vocabulary word that our expert source highlighted as a real power word. It's such a simple word, but apparently it changes the whole vibe of an intro. And that word is currently.
Yes, currently. It is such high-value vocabulary for such a common word.
Why? I mean, it just means now, right?
It means now, but it feels much more professional. I am studying English now. It's fine. It's functional. It works. But I'm currently studying English. Sounds sophisticated. It adds this little layer of polish.
It also implies a sense of movement, doesn't it? It's not static.
It does. It suggests that this is your state right now, but you have a past and you have a future. I'm currently working in IT sounds dynamic. It sounds like you're on a career path, not just stuck in a box. It's a small word that does a lot of work.
I love that. A small tweak, but a big impact. Now let's talk pronunciation. This is the part of the deep dive where we usually talk about accent, but the source material highlights one specific sound that is absolutely crucial for natural flow. The schwa.
The schwa. The sound of a lazy, efficient native speaker.
This is the sound that looks like an upside-down E in the dictionary. It's that sound. Why does it matter so much for introductions?
Because of that phrase we just learned, work as. If you pronounce every single letter perfectly, like you were reading from a spelling list, you would say, I work as a developer. A hard A sound, a hard Z sound.
Which sounds robotic. It sounds disjointed, like each word is a separate block.
It creates this staccato rhythm. Native speakers use the schwa to glue words together, so as A becomes sa. I work Ute developer, work as a.
Work as a. It almost becomes one long flowing word.
Exactly. And I want to be really clear on this. This is not about speaking fast. It's about rhythm. English is a stress-timed language. We rush over the unimportant words, the function words like A's and A, to get to the important words, the content words like developer.
So if you stress everything equally, you stress the listener.
That is such a good way to put it. If you stress everything, you stress the listener. By softening those little words, you actually make the important words pop more.
And it's physically easier, isn't it?
It's so much easier. To make a hard A sound requires tension in your jaw. To make a schwa requires almost zero effort. It's the sound you make when you get punched in the stomach.
Lovely image, but very effective. Okay, let's apply all of this to the real world. Section 4 of our outline looks at 3 specific scenarios, because you obviously wouldn't use the exact same intro in a boardroom as you would at a beach bar.
Correct. The Lego blocks, the greeting, name, role, they remain the same, but the content you put inside them shifts depending on the situation.
Let's look at scenario A, the professional environment. You're at a networking event, you're maybe wearing a blazer, you want to sound competent. Give me an example.
Okay. Hello, I'm Alex. I work as a security analyst, and I focus on network security.
Very tight, very directive. I like that.
Notice the little shifts. It was hello instead of hey. And the extra detail wasn't about a hobby, it was a specific professional focus. I focus on network security. It immediately answers the question that everyone in that room is silently asking, which is, why are we talking? What can you do for me?
It shows competence. It anchors you in the industry right away. Okay, now let's pivot to scenario B, the student or academic environment. You're in a classroom, maybe a university event.
All right. Hi, I'm Alex. I'm a computer science student, and I'm currently learning English to improve my communication skills.
I like that one a lot. The extra detail there is doing a lot of heavy lifting to improve my communication skills.
It signals ambition. In an academic setting, people want to know what you're studying, sure, but they also want to know why you are there. What's your goal? It shows that you're motivated and you're self-aware.
And finally, scenario C, the casual traveler. You're at a hostel, you're maybe holding a plastic cup of lukewarm beer.
Okay. Hey, I'm Alex. I'm from Australia, and I love learning new languages.
Totally different vibe. You start with, hey. You lead with your origin.
Yeah.
And you use I love instead of I work.
Because in a social setting, your job is often the least interesting thing about you, unless you're an astronaut, maybe. But generally, people connect over shared interests or geography. You want to say, I'm from Australia, because maybe they've been there. You want to say, I love languages, because maybe they do too. You're opening doors for conversation.
So the structure is the skeleton, but you have to change the clothes depending on the weather.
That is a weird metaphor, but yes, exactly. The structure holds it all up. The vocabulary has to match the context.
We've covered what to do. Now we have to talk about the crimes against introductions, the things we all need to stop doing immediately. And the first one on the list is the data dump.
Oh, the data dump. I call this the resume vomit.
It sounds like this. Hi, I'm Lex. I'm from Australia. I work in cybersecurity. I have 5 years experience. I like tennis and my cat's name is Fluffy. All in one breath.
It's so painful to listen to. The listener physically recoils. They can't process that much information that fast. Their eyes just glaze over.
But why do we do this? What's the impulse?
It's pure insecurity. It goes right back to that freeze moment. We feel like we have to justify our existence in that conversation. We think if we stop talking, there will be an awkward silence, and that silence is terrifying. So we just fill the air with facts. We throw everything at the wall, hoping something, anything, sticks.
The fix is to trust the conversation, right?
Yeah.
To trust the other person.
Yes. Trust is the key word. Trust that if you say, I work in cybersecurity, and then you stop and you breathe, they will ask a follow-up question. You don't need to give them the whole Wikipedia page in the first breath. Leave them wanting a little more.
Okay, mistake number 2 is a grammar gremlin. Tense confusion. Specifically, I am working as.
I am working as a student. We hear this all the time from learners.
And why does that sound off? I mean, it seems like it should be right because I'm doing it right now.
The present continuous I am working usually implied a temporary action that's happening at this very moment. But being a student or having a career, that's more of a state of being. It's your identity. The natural form is simply I'm a student or I'm a teacher. You don't need the continuous verb.
It feels more permanent, more solid.
It feels more established. I am working as a waiter might imply it's just a summer job you're doing, but I am a waiter is your role, your identity. So I am a noun is usually the safest and most natural bet for your main role.
And the third and final mistake is the robot, the person who has memorized a script.
Memorization is such a double-edged sword. It's good to know your key phrases. But if you memorize an entire paragraph word for word, you sound like you were reading a press release about yourself.
And if you forget one single word, the whole system just crashes.
Exactly. You can see the panic in their eyes. They get the blue screen of death mid-sentence. They just freeze.
So what's the alternative? How do you prepare without becoming a robot.
You focus on the patterns, the Lego blocks, not on the rigid script. Know your four pieces. And it's okay to pause. It's okay to say, I work in IT. That little actually makes you sound more authentic than a breathless, perfect recitation.
That's interesting. The imperfection makes it more human.
It shows you are thinking, not just reciting a program.
That is such a relief to hear. You don't have to be a machine.
Never. Be a human. Humans pause. Humans breathe. Humans say,
Okay, we have talked about the theory. We've talked about the psychology. Now we have to build the muscle memory. This is the part of the deep dive where we turn the mic over to you, the listener.
We call this the pause and speak moment. Because you can listen to us talk for an hour, but until you actually move your mouth and make the sounds, you aren't really learning the skill. You're just consuming content.
So we're going to do a little drill. I'm going to give you a prompt, and then I'm going to leave a silence. In that silence, I want you to say your answer out loud, not in your head out loud. Even if you are on the bus, just whisper it if you have to. Feel the words in your mouth.
Let's do it. It's really important.
Okay, first prompt. I want you to introduce your name naturally using the contraction. I'm. Ready? Hi, I'm.
3 seconds.
Good. Next prompt. Say where you are from. Simple and clear. I'm from.
3 seconds.
Okay, third prompt. Your role? Remember, you could use work in for your industry or I'm S for your specific job.
4 seconds.
All right, now for the combo. Let's try to chain them together. A simple greeting, your name, and your role, or an extra detail. Nice and slow. Ready? Go. If you just did that, congratulations, you just practiced. And if you stumbled a little bit, or you paused, good. That means you found the sticky point. That's the part you need to work on.
The source material really emphasizes that doing this in front of a mirror, actually watching your own face as you speak, is one of the fastest ways to get over that freeze response.
It sounds incredibly cheesy, I know. Go talk to yourself in the mirror. But it works. It just desensitizes you to the act of speaking about yourself. It makes it normal.
We are coming towards the end of our deep dive now. If there is just one thing you take away from everything we've talked about today, what should it be?
The golden rule. Connection over perfection. A good introduction is simple, it's clear, and it's focused on the other person. You are not trying to win a Nobel Prize for public speaking. You are just trying to say hello.
I love that shift in perspective. We spend so much time worrying about how we look, how we sound, but a clear introduction is actually an act of kindness to the other person.
It is. It gives them a handle to hold on to. It makes the conversation easy and comfortable for them. So be generous, be simple, and please don't fear the pause.
Go practice that work res sound. Practice in the mirror. Record yourself on your phone. And remember, every single time you speak, you are building that confidence. We'll see you in the next deep dive.
Happy speaking.